So I've received the two new bellows. They're aftermarket, and they came with gaskets, which of course are not anything close to what I need because that's what it's supposed to look like. So yeah. So these ones, I'm just going to throw them out right now. They're gone. All right. It was really the bellows is what I was after. So how did I get this gasket off all in one piece? I went in behind it with a razor and worked carefully across so that I could get it off because I need to make a new one. So how am I going to do that? I can't buy one anymore. Well, there is available gasket paper on a roll, and I've already made one new one, replacement one from that. So I just thought I'd show you how. This is pretty old school for sure, how I'm going to actually make this gasket. Just like a great artist, the gasket is hidden in this piece. I have to release it. So let's carry on. So what you're going to do first is, now you might like to want to take a pencil and trace around it, or a pen. What I find works really the best for me anyway is, get this where we can see it, right here. So, is I use a marker. So I'm going to press the gasket down really tight, and when I use the marker, because the end of it's a little bit soft, it actually conforms and goes right in that corner, and it gives me the corner in between the old gasket and the new one, and it gives me a really nice line. So when I cut this, if I cut all the black line off, I'm in the right place. Then I'm going to end up with a gasket the right size. Because if you cut along the ink line, it doesn't really go where you want it to go, because I've done it that way before and it doesn't really work. Okay, so I'm keeping steady pressure on it so it doesn't get away. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to color all around and do these holes. There we go, and this one, and then go around in the center one. Okay, so there is the gasket that I need trapped in that piece of gasket paper. So let's cut it out. All right, I'll try and keep my hands more out of the way, but what we're going to do is just go around and make sure that we cut all of the black marker off. So just like I did that part there, so there's no marker left, it's going to be exactly on that edge that I want. So I end up with a gasket that's identical. Anyway, I won't bore you with the rest of the cutting, but I'll cut this out and then I'll show you how I make the holes in it. So here's the outline right here. And you see I cut all the black part off of it, and it's exactly the same size as the old one. Now, how do I make the holes in it? Okay, so this is an old school tool. It has a lot of different ends. They're all in the box here for different size holes. I think it's actually a leather punch kit. It's fairly sharp on here, and I use a block of hardwood. So you can see by all the marks in it, I've made quite a few gaskets on this block. You need to support it well from behind. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get centered up on my hole for the bolt and give it a wrap. And as you can see, it cuts a pretty nice hole. Well, there's a little teeny bit left there. So instead of beating it again, I'll just give it a little nip here and get it off with the razor. There we go. So that makes a pretty good hole. It's spin it around, and let's do the other hole. There we go. So that's those two holes done. Now we need the holes where the pressure sensing or the pressure passes through to activate and deactivate the bellows, make the RAVE valves open and close. And same procedure here. I'll find a new spot where it's not got a hole in it. Cut that out. All right, we're moving right along here. So it looks right on the outside. I've got the holes in here. And let's see, how do they all line up? Well, that's pretty darn good. So now, I don't have a cutter in here big enough to do this, but sometimes I abuse the tool and use it somewhere where there's a good spot of wood right there. And this is just flat, but what I'm going to do really is I'm just going to dent in, make an indent of the size of the hole I want. Well, could have been a little stiffer than that. Let me give it a try more in the corner here. All right, now I'm just going to cut that out with a razor knife. So here we go again. I've charged up the battery in the microphone. That's why it was kind of quiet a minute ago. So I'm going to use the rotary file here to just finish this up and make it nice. So let's compare this now to our original gasket and see what we got. I think that's pretty good. That's a pretty good fit. So there you go. That's how I make these gaskets the old school way, when you can't buy any. So here we are back with this tie strap that was on here that I had wrongly assumed that somebody had put on there. According to the 1994 parts list for this, there's the bellows right there, number 34. Number 35 is a tie strap that's supposed to go on there. So it's a factory installed tie strap. Well, could I put another tie strap back on and stay with factory? Absolutely. However, check this out. This is exactly the position orientation of this tie strap when I took it apart. And as you can see, it's printed. The buckle here has printed right on to the bellows and made a hole in it. So we can see the hole in it when we stretch it out. This is why I needed diaphragms for it. So at any rate, I don't want to go with this tie strap arrangement. Yes, it's actually factory. I was totally wrong on that. I want to go with my original thought. There's a nice groove right here that a garter spring could go in, the same as the spring that went on the outside. So where do I get one from? Okay, so I got a couple of old crankshaft seals here, and it has a garter spring on the inside, so I'm going to take that off. Then there's a joint in it, because of course it's not a one-piece little spring, and all you do is unscrew it, and it comes apart. So I'm going to calculate the length. I don't know if it's possible to see that end, but see, it's smaller. It's smaller there, and it actually threads into the inside of the other end. It's pretty ingenious, actually. Okay, so I'm going to estimate what I need to go around here with a garter spring, and I'm just going to cut this and a few times, as many times as I need to, and see what happens. So a nice cut there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it opposite to each other, so that it'll thread on and put it together. I don't know if I have to dress the end of it or if it will go together. No, it did go together. So there we go. So there's a smaller spring now that came off of this crank seal, and I'll just do a test fit on here on this old one and see if I think it's tight enough. And it's not bad, but I'm going to make it a little bit tighter. So I'm just going to carry on, and then the other one I'll just repeat when I find a length. I'll just take one off another old seal out of the scrap bin. So that's my fix for this, so that we don't end up with a hole in it from a tie strap. So here we have the finished product. We have two nice garter springs. They're going to fit perfectly in the groove. On the new one, we're going to not have this problem with the strap buckle cutting a hole in the bellows. So I would have to imagine, unless they did a change up through the years, which I couldn't find any information on, that this is the way they all are. So they probably all have a hole in the bellows, and the RAVE valves probably don't even work on most of them. So that was the fix. Couple of seals out of the garbage, and manufactured some parts that are going to do what I want it to do. So when you're working on this old stuff, sometimes you have to improvise. But I really, really thought that, yeah, there's no way that thing would have a tie strap on it. But apparently it did. Go figure. Anyway, we're doing our own change up on it right now. So as you can see, I've already assembled the PTO end. It works perfect, nice and free. That's what we want. Now it's time to put this end back together. Now, okay, see, just double check. Now there was a rubber bumper in here, and I'm actually took it out of the other side just to try it, and it seemed to go a little bit too far. So this is not in the service manuals, but I think it's a worthwhile addition to it. So that's how it's going to stay. Got my new gasket on here, and I'll just put a little teeny bit of lube on the shaft. There we go. And I'm going to get this back on here. Got to fight a little bit with the cable. There we go. The cable is way in the wrong place. There we go. All right, let's get this in here. There we go. So I just put the cable back into the seat there for it. So now let's slide the housing down over the shaft, get the gasket centered up behind it, and we'll put these two screws back in here, and the holes line up nicely. Somebody made a pretty nice gasket for this. Okay, so just tighten these up by hand. It's going straight in nice, and that's what we want. Whoops, sorry, everything moves. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a little by hand snug here, and then I'm going to go to 89 inches. Let's get the torque wrench ready. And I'm not holding it steady enough. Whoops. Okay. Let me hold it steady. Start again. All right. There we go. So we're set at 89. This is one of the electronic ones, which is really cool, but sometimes it takes a little while to actually, when it needs to be laid on a bench or something that's level and doesn't move. And of course, I'm standing here and everything moves. Nothing is level. Done on that one. Done. Okay, so double check. Perfect. Done. Okay, so that part's out of the way. So I have the our cool garter that we made for it right here, and put a little white grease on it. The official lube that they would like you to use from way back in the day, of course, doesn't exist anymore. And the nearest equivalent to it is just some plain ordinary white grease. So we got to get this. There's a to go into the groove down there. Come on. Oops. There we go. In there. Oh, come on. There we go. Perfect. Seated in the groove. I'll just give it a little, see, I give it a little rotate in the groove. And you can see in here where my garter is. Yeah, let's get a light. Oh, that one's bright, fully charged. See the garter down there? So that's perfect. So it's not going to fall off, that's for sure. Now, next step is make sure that it moves. Of course it does, because it's all free and clean. And I'm going to use this little tool I use for starter brushes, because if I go to put this on, of course, this is in the way. So I'm just going to push this down so that I can start this. And of course, the shaft is coming out to help it thread on. All right. And it's plastic and it's old, so I'm just going to give it just a touch so it can't come loose. Now, I need to put a little bit of lube around here on the seal. Then, I do believe, whoops, the camera nearly fell over. So, if I push it all the way down, there you go. Do you see it pop into the groove there? So that's a pretty cool way to do that. Now, here's the garter for it. So to put the garter on, the garter spring on, I'm going to put it over in the groove in one spot. And then I use this little hook tool. And I'm just going to use it to guide it over there. I don't want to stretch it, of course, but somehow I got to get it back on. So this kind of guides it in, and look at that. See, that's pretty easy. So that works. Get rid of the excessive lube off of there. Then the cable goes on. Oh, I guess you can't see anything when I got my hands in the way. The cable goes on there. It hooks under, and it's on a little pivot right there. So that when we want to apply, so there's a spring that holds this in all the way, all the time. The spring goes on here. And whoops. when going to make you seasick watching this. When apparently over 2,500 feet, the pressure in the exhaust changes enough that you need to pull this with the cable. So the cable will pull it that way and open the valve for you. And then when you release the cable, and you come down again, it will go down by itself. So it's kind of a cool design. Anyway, this I don't think is going to change too much altitude from the lake it's running on. But anyway, in case somebody pulls the cable, I don't want it to break anything in here. So the cable down the bottom is seized up, so I have to fix it. But so this is perfect for right now. I'll put the other on the other cable on this one and get it hooked into place. Then I'll go down the bottom here, and then I will. So there we go. So other than the next thing to go on is the cap and the spring, but I'll do that after I'm satisfied that the cable works properly. So this has got a ton of extra cable at this end here that's just going to stick everywhere. So I'm just going to cure that issue right now. And there we go. So now I can, I'm just going to go ahead and fit the caps on right now. Now the adjustment on these is with this red, this is on a thread in here. It's threaded here. And the adjustment is with it screwed all the way in. So it is screwed all the way in. You get the cap on. And there, it even fits better, of course, with that big chunk of cable hanging under there. So now let's get our bail back on here. All right. And I missed on that end. All right. All right, I have to get the mirror out and see why that's not going in there. Okay, I located the little hole that the end of the bail goes into to clip on. I have the spring in. The spring goes over that nut part. Then I'm going to push it down and center it up so it's centered all the way around here. And then if the bail falls, the spring falls out. So let me put it back in again. Come on. There we go. Oh, come on, get back on there. And there we go. Well, I don't know how much you saw that. You could probably only see my hand, but anyway, it's back on and it's where it's supposed to be. So now I'm going to get the cable to work so that I can prove that these work when the engine's running, because then I can manually open them so they come up, which changes the size of the exhaust port and puts it into like high RPM mode, which is not going to work well at idle. So I'll know right away. I can prove out that they do work. Well, that concludes the RAVE valve on the 618 reassembly. Sorry you saw a lot of my hands in there because, sorry, there's no good place to put the camera where I wasn't worried it was going to fall down and break. So I did the best I could. Hopefully you enjoyed it and learned something from it maybe. Anyway, thanks for tuning in today. Appreciate your time as always. Like, share, subscribe, all those other things. And oh yes, and the airboat is out running the lake. The owner's called and said he just loves the way it runs. Fantastic. So great all around. Good video, hopefully, and a good result on the airboat. Thanks. See you again.